gang, show me Platt, and today I show you how to make Pyment. So let's go. So gang, I told you, a couple weeks back that I wanted to get back to making more, get back to brewing more, making wine, all kinds of stuff. So I thought we'd continue our momentum today, kind of build on the braggot we made a couple weeks back. For those of you that don't remember, braggot is kind of a combination between beer and mead. Today we're making something called Pyment, P-Y-M-E-N-T. It is a combination between grape wine and mead, which is a honey wine. Some people will say that it's more like a mellow, a grape flavored honey or grape infused honey, like you would with like blueberry or blackberry or something in a mead. But again, that's opinions may vary on that. As far as history goes for Pyment, again, we've made wine from grapes for thousands of years. We've made mead, honey wine, for thousands of years. The reality is there's probably no hard and fast origin to Pyment, and that these things have probably been blended together in some form or fashion for thousands of years. So there's really, like I said, no hard origin story. Today, probably what you'll find on the marketplace is true to a mellow mel, that it's not the traditionally 50-50 as far as fermentables, 50 from the grapes and 50% from the honey. Today, this is most likely a mead that has grape or grape juice added to it. So again, more of a kind of traditional mead. Let's talk about what we need to make our mead. First, we're going to do a gallon batch, and so I've got my 1 gallon fermenter sanitizing right there. Next, I've got 1 gallon or 2 half gallons of store-bought grape juice. I prefer the dark grape juice or purple grape juice. Just as some of these experiments I've done, I found, to me, it has a little better taste profile. If you might remember the video, I made a homemade port wine with the purple grape juice. Turned out absolutely wonderful, so I'm going with that. And then we're going with a 1 pound of honey. This is a 2 pound container, so about half the container there. I am going to throw in a little yeast nutrient, just my working with honey. The yeast needs a little help working through that thick liquid, so we're going to give it to them. And then finally, I will talk about my yeast later on. I'm going to do a little experiment on this, but I'll explain that later. So with that being said, let's make some Pyment. Alright gang, so I've poured our 1 gallon of grape juice in a pot. This is a step you may or may not need to take or want to take. If you want to just go ahead and dump the grape juice in a fermenter and then put in your honey, shake it about, feel free to do that. I'm heating the grape juice for a couple different reasons. As I pointed out in the braggot video, to blend in the honey easier. Once I get the honey added, I will bring to a boil. That is for sanitation purposes. And again, any wax in the honey, sometimes it drives off that wax. You don't have to. This is just steps I'm doing. So if you just wanted to go ahead and just blend this together, you should have no problem. You'll just have to work a little more, do a little more stirring, a little more agitation to get all that honey in. So let me get all this honey in. I'll bring it to a boil, and then we'll come back to do a hydrometer reading and see how much potential alcohol we have. Alright gang, so we've got our mixture cooled down, and before I go ahead and pitch the yeast, we're going to do a hydrometer reading, see how much potential alcohol we can get out of this. Alright, that is coming out at about 1.090. That should give us over 10% alcohol by volume if we get a good clean fermentation. Real quick to note, something that you may or may not know, and I've talked about in past videos, the grapes that are used for juice tend to have less sugar in them than a typical wine grape. Now, with some store-bought juices, and I got a feeling that is some of this, even though we did add honey, that they may add some fructose or even corn syrup or something to that to sweeten up that juice. But just know that you might run into some lower sugar juices. Don't presume that store-bought juice, it tastes sweet, but don't presume there's just a ton of fermentables in there. So just something to note on there. Also, too, I want to bring up at this point in the video, we are creating, a wine or wine variant. So some of you out there, well, what about acid blend? What about, fining agents like Kesosol or bentonite or whatever? All those are an option, and you can do those. In my videos, and what I'm kind of doing here, we just keep it simple. But that is, those are different things that you can utilize in your toolbox. Again, an acid blend, to provide some balance or tannins. Feel free to utilize that if you know your taste profile for sure. But anyway, let me go ahead and get my yeast and yeast nutrient pitched, and we'll come back to wrap up. Alright gang, so I got our liquid cooled down. I added our yeast nutrient and the yeast. Real quick, I want to talk about the yeast. I'm going to do a little experiment here. I had some leftover ale yeast that I'd used on the braggot and a couple other little experiments I had. As far as original gravity, higher ABV, this yeast works just fine. Now, is it designed for wine? No, it's not. But you can use other yeast in these little experiments. If you don't have a champagne or a wine or a mead specific yeast, you can use something like a Satfail USO5 or whatever, as long as it's designed to handle the gravity points that you're at, or the potential alcohol. If you're trying to make something in the low teens, can it handle that? Yeast, like a good brewerish yeast, does love maltose that comes from malted barley, but it will eat the fructose that's in grape juice too. It's kind of like going to a buffet. You want to hit the prime rib, but if you know prime rib, well, then where's that nice honey baked ham they got or something like that? So yeast will adjust to it. And again, we've added yeast nutrient, but I'm going to try this little experiment just because I wanted to use the rest of this yeast, see how that kind of comes out. As far as the timeline for this, it's going to be similar to the braggot. We're going to let this sit in secondary for 2 weeks, or primary for 2 weeks, rack off into secondary, let that go for a couple of months, and then after then we'll bottle, and it'll probably be about 6 months down the line before we try. Now, real quick, to answer a potential question we might get, and it's something I get in a lot of my videos. Well, hey, can I drink this after a few days, or after a week or 2 weeks? After probably 10 days to 2 weeks, ABV-wise, we're going to be close to that 10%. So as far as if you just want something to get hammered with, yes, you'll have something in a week or two. But what happens to the flavor over the next few months is why we let that settle. You won't get much more alcohol after the first couple of weeks, but the flavors will really smooth out, balance out. Certain flavor compounds that are off will end up actually settling into the yeast cake on the bottom, and just allowing that time, you're just going to get a better product. But as far as something drinkable, yeah, 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll definitely have something there. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or things that you'd like me to try to make, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.